Hello everybody, this is Tushar sir here, and today we are going to discuss the second chapter of your Flamingo, that is Low Spring by Anis Jung. And this chapter actually is an excerpt. This is a piece from a book written by Anis Jung, and the book is titled Low Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. So here it means we can infer from that it must be, or it is actually about some childhood stories. So the theme, and that's why this title Low Spring. So here the spring is not about the season, this is about human life. So spring of human life means childhood. So the whole thing is about childhood, and that too through this theme you can understand that it talks of poverty and tradition condemn the children to lead a life of suffering and exploitation. That means she is talking about the poverty of these children. She is talking that how these children are exploited. She is saying that how these children suffer. So these are the things that she is talking of, that not just poverty, actually tradition also bind these children, and they never come out of their sufferings and these exploitations. The whole life they are exploited. So these are the problems that she is discussing in this story. Now, and let's see the characters as well. So here the characters are Sahab-e-Alam, and the Sahab-e-Alam is a rag picker. So this Sahab-e-Alam is a rag picker, and Mukesh is a bangle maker, and Savita too is a bangle maker. She too belongs to a bangle maker's family. So these are the characters here, and all these three characters, all these three children, they are very poor. They lead a very wretched kind of life, very miserable kind of life. So through these characters, she is trying to justify, or she is trying to explain this kind of the theme that we have already discussed, that is poverty and tradition, how they condemn the children. So that is the whole idea here. And now let's move on how the story conveys this idea, how it has all been presented in this chapter. So how it starts actually, Sahab, the first story is of Sahab-e-Alam. And Sahab and the narrator, they are talking. And Sahab says, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. So the writer is asking him, why do you do this? Actually, they meet daily, as she has written that I ask Sahab, whom I encounter every morning, scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. That means they meet daily in the morning. Now he might be for rag picking and she might be for morning walk. So Sahab actually belongs to Dhaka, and he says there were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. So in the storms everything got swept away, and he doesn't remember anything. It's all told to him by his mother. And as they were left with nothing, so they came to India, where he is looking for gold. So this is the story of Sahab. Now the answer, because the writer asks, why do you do this? So he answers, I have nothing else to do. So she said, okay, go to school. Glibly. Glibly is readily. But then she herself realized, hollow, useless. He doesn't have sufficient to eat, and she was asking him to go to school. He said, there are no schools in my neighborhood. So she said, okay, if I build one, will you come, will you join? Half joking manner. She just was joking. But he took that seriously, and he said, yes, I will. And after a few days, what? He just went up running to her and said, is your school ready? Now, she actually felt quite embarrassed, because she didn't mean it. She was just joking, and he took that quite seriously, just took her on her words. So she felt quite embarrassed. having made a promise which was not meant. And then she felt, okay, promises like mine abound in every corner of their bleak world. Abound, that is profuse, bleak, wretched, miserable. So why should I be embarrassed such promises? They might daily be deceived by such kind of things. So she felt so. Now as she came to know about him more, so once what happened, she just asked him his name. And he said Sahab-e-Alam, his full name. And it meant what? Lord of the universe. Strange. Lord of the universe, and what he was doing? Picking rags. So perhaps he didn't know its meaning. Otherwise he would have hard time believing it. So we have a question on this. And what is that? The question is, what is the irony underlying Sahab's name? What is the irony underlying Sahab's name? So the irony is his name was Sahab-e-Alam, which meant Lord of the universe, and quite contrary to what his name represented, what he was doing, a menial job of picking rags. Menial, a very petty and low kind of job. So that's why. Now what? She actually came to know a lot more children there, because slowly and gradually she came to know each one present there. And one day a group of 3-4 children was standing there, and she asked that, why aren't you wearing chappals? So one, my mother, she has kept them on shelf. My mother doesn't bring them down from the shelf, said one. And the another who was standing there, even if she did, he'll throw them off. One, actually, who was wearing shoes that do not match. So when she pointed to that, he shuffled. Actually felt embarrassed, and so he shuffled, just trying to hide. Might be different colors and different numbers or so. Another, third one, he said, what? I want a pair of shoes. Perhaps never had one, so he was willing to have. So she had seen many such children now on village streets and village roads and in cities, so many barefoot children. So what happens is, it's not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. Means the explanation she gets from them for not wearing shoes is what? It's not lack of money we have. It means they are trying to say we have money. The thing is, it's a tradition to stay barefoot, and that's why we are like this. But to writer, she is not convinced. She is not convinced. She feels what? It's an excuse to explain away the perpetual state of poverty. That is a lingering, permanent state of poverty. She feels it like that. And now we have a story of a priest boy. So she is telling us, I remember a story. Once a man from Udupi told me. And what was that actually? The thing is, his father was a priest actually. The thing was, his father was a priest, and he would pass by the temple when he would go to school. So on his way to the school, he would stop there briefly and would pray to Goddess. What? Oh Goddess, give me shoes. Now 30 years later, what happened? Writer visited that place again, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. That means all wilderness, white. In the yard, there were plastic chairs, red and white. A boy came running, wearing grey uniform, socks and shoes, threw his bag on the folding bed, and all panting and puffing, just because came in a hurry or so. So looking at the boy, she remembered what? The prayer the other boy had made when he finally got the pair of shoes. And what was that? Let me never lose them. So what? He got the shoes and now he wanted that he should not lose them. And when she looked at this boy, this 30 years later, she felt what? Goddess had granted his prayer. Hence, what he wished was granted. He wished for shoes, and now not just he, the next generation even have shoes. It means the conditions have improved. That's what she is trying to say. And then she says the young boys like the son of the priest now have shoes, but the rag pickers, many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood are still shoeless. The condition is still very poor. So the purpose of narrating this story is to tell us the condition of the rag pickers, that over the years there has been no change in the condition of these rag pickers. They were poor and they are still poor. That's what she means. And so we have a question on this, that why does, or say, why has Anis Jung narrated the story of why has Anis Jung narrated the story of the priest boy? So what is actually the purpose? And I answered that already. Now she says, my acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers. I must move it on now. And we have discussed all these things, that where they were living actually in Simapuri and all that. So this is here now. I'll discuss now these things. So what my acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. Now, this is important. Periphery, outskirts, and yet miles away. So why this periphery and miles away, and that too metaphorically? Metaphorically means we are comparing. And miles away, so here actually the writer is comparing the standard of living, one in Simapuri and the other in Delhi. So a big gap is there actually. Delhi, metro city with all the modern amenities and luxuries and hi-fi lifestyle, and Simapuri, devoid of even the basic amenities. That is the reason. Now what, in Simapuri, what these people actually, they live, they have come from Bangladesh back in 1971, and they are all squatters. Squatters means illegal dwellers. And how they live? Mud structures, with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, without drainage, sewage and running water. Lived 10,000 rag pickers. And they lived not just for a year or two, they lived there for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards. And of course, we can understand the local politicians that you give me votes and I'll arrange all these things for you. So these are the condition in which they live, and you must know this condition. What? All these mud structures, roofs of tin and all these, you must know the condition in which they were living. So yes, they, without identity, without permits, but with ration cards, which enable them to buy grains and get their names in the voters list. Okay, the purpose is served. So what would identity do? Food is more important for survival than an identity, of course. This, tummy cannot be satisfied with identity. It needs food. And that's what they say. And when she discussed this with the women there in, tarred clothes, all tattered clothes, So they say, what? Of course, if at the end of the day, we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than go to the fields. What would we do going back to those fields where there is no food and nothing for us? Here at least we are getting something to eat. So that's their life now, like nomads. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tent. Children grow up in them. They also do something for survival. And what? The only means of survival there is rag picking. And through the years, even that has become fine arts. So much experience. So much experience that they can scan and say that nothing is there or move on or will find something here. So much experience they've got. So garbage to them is gold. It's their daily bread. It's the roof over their head, even if it's a leaking one. So that is the importance of garbage for them. And so we have a question here and has been asked in exams. What the question is, how is garbage gold to the rag pickers? How is garbage gold to the rag pickers? So this is what we have to answer, have been asked, because their whole life depends on that. So we need to, it's as precious as gold. So this is what we need to say. Now Sahab again, sometimes same, I find a rupee in the garbage. Even a 10 rupee note, eyes lighting up, all happy. And the writer says you don't stop scrounging, searching, when there is hope of finding a silver coin, of course. Actually, the perspective is different here. The children, what do they feel? They look at it as something wrapped in wonder. To them, it is something promising, lucrative, wrapped in wonder, mysterious. But for the parents, it is simply a means of survival. So there is difference. And so we have a question on this as well. How is children's perspective regarding rag picking different from that of the parents? Different from that of the parents. How? How is the children's perspective different? So as I already told you, what the parents feel, actually children are immature. They don't understand life. They haven't seen life. They feel, okay, today if we have got 10 rupees, tomorrow it may be 100 or then 500. So promise. But the parents, they have seen life. They were picking rags, and now even in their old age, they are doing the same thing. Never came out of that. So they know, even if they get 100 or 200 or 500 a day, it won't go for the whole life. Now, okay, there is winter. Sahab, there is actually a club, and Sahab is standing outside that club. Two young men playing tennis in that dress. Sahab too is wearing that dress, but it looks strange on him, quite strange, awkward. He explains, somebody gave them to me. He is trying to explain that charity, he got that in charity. And then what? Those shoes. They are the discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them. Okay, rich boy, the son of a rich man. Why should I wear a shoe with a hole? Just throw it away. But to him, to Sahab, even the shoe with a hole was not less than a dream come true. He got the shoes, but the game he was watching so intently. Yes, that was out of his reach. But okay, all that is fine. Now, Sahab, there is a twist in his life. There is a change. And what is that? Sahab left rag picking. Yes. And now he's doing something else. So this morning, Sahab is on his way to a milk booth and his hand is a steel canister. And what he says, pointing in distance, he says, now I work at the tea stall and I get 800 rupees and all my meals. Yes, 800 meals. Does he like the job? Writer feels, okay, he's getting 800 meals, so might be, he must be loving or liking that. But his face has lost its carefree look. The look on his face, that carefree look, is all gone. And what that steel canister seems heavier than the bag he used to carry so lightly over his shoulders. So why it seems heavier? So see, we definitely have to ask a question here, that why does it seem heavier? So the question is, why does the steel canister seem heavier than the bag Sahab used to carry? So why? The reason is quite simple. Sahab was his own master earlier, but now he works at a tea stall. He was a servant. Earlier, he was carefree. He didn't have to follow anybody, but now he had to follow the orders of his master. He was to be at the beck and call of his master. He was no longer his own master. He was a servant. And so he couldn't be that carefree as he used to be earlier. And that's the end of Sahab's story. Now the chapter of Sahab is closed and now we have Mukesh. And new story, new hero. And Mukesh is saying, what? I want to drive a car. I will be a motor mechanic. So here you can see that I must move ahead with no longer his own master. Now the story of Mukesh. And the Mukesh is saying that I want to drive a car, be a motor mechanic. So writer, okay, do you know anything about cars? Like, want to drive, be a motor mechanic. Do you know anything? So looking straight into her eyes, I learn, but to writer, his dream looms like a mirage. Now why this? And we must ask that why has Mukesh's dream been compared to a mirage? So why this comparison with mirage? So mirage, you know well that this is an optical illusion, something inaccessible. Similarly, Mukesh's dream was something inaccessible, an illusion belonging to a poor family of bangle makers. It was next to impossible for him to achieve that, doing something else. Actually, every other family in Firozabad was engaged in the task of making bangles. They would just simply sit around furnaces, weld pieces of glass and make bangles. It seems perhaps what for all the women in the land. It seemed like that because every family was engaged in that task. So writer says that perhaps they don't know. They don't know what? It is illegal. Actually, what they worked in hot furnaces with high temperatures, dingy cells. Dingy means dark. without air and light, that the law, if enforced, could get him and all those 20,000 children who slog, that is, work very hard, who slog their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. So perhaps they didn't know this. Child labor, that is illegal. We have a question on this, what I described just now. Mention the hazards of working in the bangle making industry. So we need to, this is the answer. What? Hot furnace, high temperature, dingy cells, all these. Now Mukesh was quite happy. Why? Where people don't have their houses or roofs over their head, he had one and it was being rebuilt. And what, moreover, writer was visiting. So okay, he took her along with him, walked past stinking lanes, pungent, stinking, bad smelling, choked with garbage, houses that remain hovels, huts, and what? Crumbling walls, rickety, wobbly doors, shaky, and no windows, humans and animals in coexistence, in a primeval state actually, primitive state, such a way. And finally they reached a house, it was a half-built shack. In one corner something was being cooked. A frail, that is a weak lady, was cooking the evening meal. She welcomed. Okay, on platter there were chopped vegetables. And who was she? She was the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Not much older in years, but yes, she has begun to command respect as the Bahu of the family. She was the in charge actually. And what happened actually when the father-in-law entered, she just draws her veil closer to her face and withdraws behind a broken wall. Custom, tradition. The daughters-in-law must cover their faces before the male elders. And here this male elder is an impoverished bangle maker who worked all his life, first as a tailor, then as a bangle maker. Just worked and could do nothing else. Couldn't renovate his house, couldn't send his sons to school, couldn't do anything except what? Teaching them the art of making bangles. Okay, that I did this to have my bread, and you do the same and you will have at least your bread. So this is what he could do. So the grandmother of Mukesh, she is still there. So we discussed about all these things. And now what? So his grandmother is there and she is saying what? That no, it is his karam, his destiny. So what does she mean by this? It's his karam, his destiny. Sorry, it is his karam, his destiny. So, what does this mean? What she is trying to say here through this, I must say that what actually is she trying to say by this? Actually, what she meant is, can a God-given lineage ever be broken? Lineage, legacy, what they got in inheritance. Generations were engaged in the task of bangle making. It was something they believed given to them by God. And how can they leave something which is given to them by God? That would be defying God, going against God. And they couldn't do this. That's what she meant actually. So, born in the caste of bangle makers, they had seen nothing but bangles all around us. Everywhere, every family, every yard, every house, every street, bangles and bangles of all colors. And they are just kept in what? Unkempt yards. Unkempt, untidy. And the young men, they just pile them up on hand-drawn carts, and just push them through the streets of shanty town, shanty, where poor people live. The children, boys and girls, they sit alongside their parents and welding pieces of glass, making bangles, helping them out. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than the light outside. What does that mean? Turned into owls, yes. Could see better in the dark than the light. So this is what happens to them, and when they grow up, they often lose their eyesight. How tragic. This is the tragedy with them. Now Savita is also sitting there, young girl in drab, that is discolored. Just discolored. Pink dress. Soldering pieces of glass, making bangles. Like a machine, her hands move like a machine, tongues of a machine. So looking at her, she feels, the writer, does she know the sanctity of bangles she helped make? Sanctity, purity, piousness. Does she know? They actually are what? They symbolize an Indian woman's suhag, auspiciousness in marriage. Does she know? But okay, even if she doesn't know, how far? One day she will have to, and she will know. When? When she will become a bride. Red bangles rolled onto her wrist. Her hands dyed red with henna. Her head draped with red veil. She would know how far it will go. One day she will have to, when she would be a bride. Like the elderly woman who is sitting beside her, she still has bangles on her wrist, but no light in her eyes. And how could there be any light? How could there be, she says, she couldn't have even one full meal all her life. One full meal. So that's what she reaped, she got in her life. Not even one full meal. And how could there be any light or happiness or any promise in her eyes if that is the life she has led? So her husband, who with a flowing beard, yes, is there. And he says, I know nothing except bangles. Yes, I know only bangles. And here's one more thing. He has managed, he has built a house for the family to live in. So, yes, something. That is no less than an achievement. When the people don't have roof over their heads, he has at least managed a house. No less than an achievement. But whatever it is, roof or no roof, house or no house, more or less the situation is same in the whole of Firozabad. What? They are all poor, all poor, all poor. They don't have even enough to eat. So such is the condition. So the writer, she couldn't do without asking. And so finally she went to them and she asked that why don't you organize yourselves into a cooperative? What? And of course we can also ask this, that why don't the bangle makers organize themselves into a cooperative, into a cooperative. So why don't they organize actually? What is the reason? They are all trapped, caught in a vicious circle, that is evil circle of middlemen, brokers. So yes, they are caught, who trapped their fathers' forefathers. And they say what? It's no use. It's no use even if we organize, it's no use. Why? Because if something illegal happens, we are the ones who are caught and whole, that is pulled and dragged to jail and beaten for doing something illegal. There is no leader among us who would help us see things differently. So without a leader, what could we do? We are caught and beaten and punished and everything that is, we are the victims. We are the victims. Everyone is tired, their parents. The talks move in a spiral from poverty to apathy to greed and to injustice. That's how it happens with them. Because that's how their life is surrounded with. That's what their life is surrounded with. They are poor, there is no sympathy and empathy for them, and all they see, this greed, injustice, all this is what they have in their lives. So listening to them, I see two distinct worlds. And which are these two distinct worlds? We must know, and we must actually, ask. So the question is, which are the two worlds Anis Jung finds the bangle makers caught in? Which are the two worlds Anis Jung finds the bangle makers caught in? So the two worlds. One is the world of the family caught in the web of poverty, burdened by the stigma of caste. Means being born in that caste is nothing less than a stigma. Stigma, something, a sort of branding or so. Very something disgraceful for them. So one is that, and the other is the world of policemen, middlemen, bureaucrats, sahukars, politicians, and these are the people on the other side. And together they have put a baggage on the child which he cannot put down. Why? Because when one is young, doesn't understand, follows what is told, they did, and when they grow up, they become habitual. They become habitual and never come out of that. Because to do something different would mean to dare, and daring is not part of his growing up. They are never taught that you can dare, you can challenge the limits, you can do something different. They are never taught. So how would they then? And so when I see a flash of it in Mukesh's eyes, when Anis Jung finds that yes, Mukesh wants to do something different, she feels cheer. She is happy, at least someone is there who wants to do something different, who has the guts to do something different. She's happy. And then she asks the usual questions. Do you know anything about cars? He says, I'll learn. It's far away. I'll walk. So in between, actually, she asks one more thing. What? Do you also dream of flying a plane? Oh, that's too much, asking too much. And there is an embarrassment in his response. He said, no. There is an embarrassment but no regret. And why should he regret? Why? He dreamt of what he saw. He had seen cars hurtling down the streets of his town, speeding away. He had seen. But few airplanes fly over Firozabad. Hadn't seen aeroplanes, American and British. Hadn't seen airplanes flying over Firozabad. So, okay, what he saw, he dreamt of. What was in his reach, what he could do, he dreamt of. What is beyond reach, why should one dream of all that? So this is the whole story, and here we have some questions And that is, how in your opinion can Mukesh realize his dreams? So how Mukesh can realize his dream? One, by sticking to his aim. Two, by persevering, that is working continuously hard. And three, by not getting deviated by the hurdles that come in his way. And apart from these, you can include the other points to answer the thing. So it's quite an important one. And there is one more, that is justify the title Lost Spring. Yes. A long answer type. Sorry, justify the title Lost Spring. So this is J, justified, just due to this digital board and pen, so you can understand. Justify the title Lost Spring. And the answer is the whole story. You need to explain this with the help of Sahab, Mukesh and Savita, explaining their lives and how this lost spring, that how these children didn't have any spring in their childhood. So you need to explain and clarify these things. And that's it for this lost spring. This is the whole story. I think it's all clear. Thank you.